Good morning, good evening, or good night, depending on where you are in the world today. And a happy new year. We haven't done one of these in a while. And this is our first one for 2021. And we are very excited to be welcoming back Dr. Jimmy Henderson. So let me go ahead and add him. Now, for those of you who might remember, Dr. Henderson was last on with us and spoke a little bit about his work in regards to his spiritual journey. And today he is intent on telling us a little bit more about the work that he actually does with people, including psycho-spiritual writing and his multi-dimensional way of thinking, which I think is something that is so important in the time that we live in, because the old modalities, the old ways of doing things are just no longer doable and feasible. And sorry, please bear with me because I cannot seem to actually, there we go. You are online. You should have a request to join the live. If not, please feel free to hit the button and request to join me instead. And there you are.
Hello, Stephen. Morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Yes, no, lovely. It's lovely and cool today, so I'm very happy.
Ah, fantastic. It's actually nice and cool out here as well. You're up in the north of the country, are you not?
Yeah, I'm in Durban, North Dean, which is near Pine.
Right, okay. That's interesting because this time of year is normally extremely hot for you guys, is it not?
It has been very hot. This is why I say I'm actually enjoying the morning, because it's only about 24, 25 today, which is unusual. It's been in the 30s the last few days, and it's been terrible.
Oh, no, I can imagine, especially with that humidity. It can get quite
terrible.
Yeah. And here out in Cape Town, I mean, it's been beautiful weather. We had a few warm days, and now it's back down to, again, also 24, 25. We're having lovely cool nights, so it makes the summers a lot more bearable, a lot more enjoyable, I think, as well. So, yeah, it's so far so good for our summer here in South Africa.
Yes.
But Dr. Henderson, I'd like to say a huge thank you for joining us again here today. I'm very excited to delve a bit more into the work that you actually do. As I was just saying to our listeners before we kicked off, you last were on the show and told us a little bit about your journey into Rosicrucianism, into your own spiritual path and development. And we're very excited today to learn more about the actual work that you now do and how you help people through that. So why don't we delve a little bit into it? One of the topics that you broached that you wanted to discuss was psycho-spiritual writing. Now, I'm very excited to hear what this is and how this works and, yeah, how it helps people.
Okay, well, I'll say good morning, everybody that's tuning in. And yes, my approach is supposed to be a bit unique. I am a published author, as you know. I've been writing for about, well, since the 80s actually, but I only started getting published in 2000 and 2001. And then but at that time I'd already been studying psychology. I started studying psychology back in 1982. So I was studying for 35 years before I actually got my PhD.
Wow.
So, and as I you know, it took a long time. So for those of you out there who are middle-aged and still struggling with studies, you can do it. I got my PhD at 64 a couple of years ago. Anyway, the fact is that I integrated my psychological work as well as my counseling work. I have a background in counseling of 34 years for Lifeline. And I try to integrate that into my writings. I do have a couple of published books at the moment, quite a few which are self-published. And I also have a blog which I keep up to date. And okay, let me come back to the psycho-spiritual approach. As a Rosicrucian, and I call myself, I would regard myself as spiritual and conscious as well. I I try to approach spiritual matters and metaphysical matters, especially metaphysics, the actual principles themselves. I try to approach them from a psychological point of view. I feel there's a lot of people sitting on the fence when it comes to metaphysics and even spirituality and New Age stuff. People sitting on the fence are not sure, not happy. And I'm trying to make it more understandable because I've got a background in science, cognitive science and psychology. I thought, let me try and present a new approach where I try to explain these phenomena. You know, the phenomena, or they call it the phenomena, the ability to meditate, the kind of experiences one has during meditation, the kind of changes that take place in one's thinking and state of mind. Try and explain that in terms of psychological principles so that people can identify with it more. You know, in other words, not airy-fairy, but listen, the mind works in this way, and this is why you're having this experience. A typical example would be a video I've just put on now called Synesthesia, where I explain to people how the mind actually has the ability to translate sense impressions into images. We actually have that ability. Blind people can actually feel colors on their fingers and they see the color in their mind just by touch. And some blind people can hear music and hear stuff, and they can also see colors in the inner eye. And, we all have that ability. We've got to just develop it. And so what I do with my writing, I take the metaphysical principles, say, of imagery, and then I explain it in terms of psychological principles, how the mind works, how we form this. Now, it's perfectly natural. It's not pie in the sky stuff. It's perfectly natural for you to be able to develop this imagery to the point where it actually becomes spontaneous, to the point where your subconscious mind is communicating with you in real time, and the images that are coming forth during meditation are actually from your subconscious mind in real time. So that's just an example of applying psychology to metaphysical principles to make it understandable to people.
That is so, I want to say that that's a huge development in the way that we look at these things, because you're quite right. You know, these sort of what a lot of people term woo-hoo and airy-fairy concepts are actually based in science. And for a lot of people out there for whom these modalities have never been available because it's been so airy-fairy, and yet they could benefit hugely from learning how to access it. Do you find that you're able to deal better with people who, for instance, say come from the corporate world because of your way of being able to explain these phenomena?
Actually, I don't work with the corporate world, Stephen. I'll be honest with you. I'm retired, actually. So at the moment, my work is purely, in the old days, I used to give a lot of talks and things. In fact, I'm still available to give talks to selected groups. So I'm not looking for corporate work. You know, I'm pushing, going towards 70 years old, and I'm certainly not looking to do that kind of work anymore. I was in the corporate, well, semi-corporate world. I was in the service, government service for 30 years, and I've had enough of corporate. So what I do now is I try and approach the person at home through my articles, through my books. If there's somebody in business that wants to apply the principles to business, that's fine, but I don't specifically target corporates.
Okay. And when dealing with people at home, or rather before you were retired, did you feel that they were able to grasp the concepts more easily?
Yes, I think I've had very good feedback from people regarding my books and articles, especially articles. I do a lot of work on social media. I make my own videos and I place it on YouTube, and I place them on some of my social media links. I've got quite a few groups, maybe 30 or 40 groups I belong to. So I'm able to place these videos and articles on these groups, and in that way reach many, hopefully many people. And I do get positive response. If I look at the comments, I get very positive comments to my work, because it's so, I wouldn't say scientific, it's so neutral. It's so common sense almost, you know. So it's very difficult to criticize my work because it's based on scientific fact.
Yes, exactly. Now, something that I want to delve into a little bit with you here, because when I saw the comment that you posted under one of the topics that you wanted to discuss, which you've now briefly mentioned, which is multidimensional thinking, using a meditative state. Can you tell me or expand a bit more on that from your perspective? And I'll explain to you why I'm so intrigued by this. I actually was chatting to a friend of mine last week, and he was talking about, so he's a little bit, I wouldn't say a little bit, he is very open to metaphysical ideals and ideas, but his passion is very much technology. And the question that he is currently wrestling with is technology getting to the point where it is starting to broach the spiritual? And I get chills as I say that, so it is. The reason that he brought that up was he was referencing a scientist, engineer, who was talking about the quantum computing realm.
Yes.
And the fact that the chips have now gotten so small that if they go any smaller, the electrons and things that have to actually move around to transmit the data actually bleed out. So the chip can't hold the information and it just bleeds out, which is where quantum computing now comes in. And what they've observed is these particles actually flit in and out of existence, which we know that happens with everything. So we know on a certain level, things get too small, and then the spaces between the particles are actually bigger than the particles themselves, and there's this interdimensional space. And he very matter-of-factly says what happens is we allow the particle to leave, or not allow it, it leaves this dimension, and it goes somewhere that we don't know where it goes. And when it comes back, it has the required information that we need. So these computers are now able to, in theory, solve problems in a couple of hours that our most powerful supercomputer would take thousands of years to solve. And when he was saying this, I said, but this sounds very similar to meditation. And I'm specifically looking for an answer, and it just comes to me. And you go, where did that come from? I wasn't even necessarily thinking about it, or it wasn't even in the realm of what I would have considered possible, and yet there the answer is. So that's my very elaborate way of sharing my little bit about what I understand multidimensional thinking to be. But what is your perception of it, and do you think that the world as a whole is moving in that direction?
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Yes, I want to clarify first that, well, I actually also have a technological background. When I was a youngster, I was a technician, electronics. And so that also, as I say, that scientific technological part of mine, I try to integrate into my writings as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And I'm not too clued up with quantum computers at this stage. I've got the theory, what you described, I've read about that. I would equate the quantum computer to the subconscious mind of the human being. In other words, we have a level, you've got the quantum level, which is subatomic, and then you've got another level of the subconscious mind, which is far more broader. It's huge, and it's open up to reality. It's far closer to reality than our conscious thinking. We have this interface between the conscious mind and reality, which is the subconscious mind. And a huge amount of processing goes on there. I believe that one of the powerful things is during meditation, you're able to access directly the subconscious mind and have this, I mentioned this one-to-one, the real-time communication with the subconscious mind, where the information, whether you set in, there is a concept in psychology called immediate insight. What it means is that you pose a problem and you ruminate on it, and suddenly the answer comes, which is, I think you mentioned that. That is a example of a connection to the subconscious mind, allowing it to ruminate and then suddenly subconscious mind communicates with you and gives you the answer. Well, it puts together those elements pretty much like a quantum computer. We put together the elements of the problem at the subconscious level and then present you the answer at the conscious level. Just one moment of consciousness. So yes, I would compare the subconscious mind to a quantum computer, and our conscious mind to, I don't know, some interface where we get the information from. Far less memory than the quantum computer, because as you know, the conscious mind is only a fraction, can only process a fraction of the conscious mind can process. So it's a very nice analogy that you've given me there with the quantum computer, and I compare it to the subconscious mind. And yes, even having a technological background, I started meditation about 35, 40 years ago. And it works. And it's as I say, not airy-fairy, direct connection to the subconscious mind, direct connection to information, and a broader connection to the reality out there, to other personalities, other energies that are in the universe that you can't pick up with a conscious mind. But I do want to explain my concept of multidimensional thinking is not the same as that. My concept is actually a way of thinking. I'm going to give you a beautiful example now. I'm going to solve something for you which has been puzzling philosophers for the past 10,000 years. The riddle of the chicken and the egg. I'm going to solve it for you using multidimensional thinking. Now, what multidimensional thinking, as I apply it, is you are superimposing different types of information one on top of the other. If I look at the problem with a scientific perspective, I get a scientific answer. If I look at the problem with a philosophical, logical perspective, I get a logical answer, but it's not necessarily true scientifically. They have logically true, but they're not scientifically true at the same time. And if I look at it from a semantics point of view, what do the words actually mean? You can play around with words and arrive at some answers as well, because very much the concept is often within the concept itself you can find the answer. Then and psychology, psychological concepts. And what I do, you know, in the old days we had this transparency machines. What do they call these things? Overhead projectors.
Yeah.
Projector. Before the time of digital projectors, we had overhead projectors. And you get transparencies. You had to make a transparency of your problem or of your issue, and you had to then put it on the overhead projector and discuss it. Now, to me, multidimensional thinking is taking information from a whole variety of different sources. Symbolism, semantics, science, philosophy, metaphysics, psychology, and looking for a common answer in all of those. In other words, you're superimposing one transparency, one framework of knowledge on top of another, and then you look through the whole lot and you get your answer. I'm going to give you able to.
Sorry, please continue. Yeah.
So I'm going to use multidimensional thinking. When you're ready, I'll use multidimensional thinking as an example to solve the riddle of the chicken and egg.
Please go ahead.
Okay. I'll start with semantics. This becomes a word game. And then I'll move to the area of approach of symbolism, that everything is symbolic and can be represented by something else. So the chicken represents a living thing or living things, right? It is a living thing. The egg represents the reproductive process, right? Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
Right. So therefore, you cannot have a reproductive process before you have the living thing. That's now we're in philosophy, that's pure logic, reasoning. The reproductive process is attached to the living thing. So therefore, the living thing comes before the reproductive process. Would that make sense?
It does, yes.
Therefore, the first part of this problem is solved by the fact that the chicken came first, because the reproductive process would have to precede, no, the living thing would have to precede the reproductive process. And then of course, the question comes up, what gave rise to the chicken? Right, now we have to move away from symbolism and we have to move into evolutionary science and put the transparency on top. What does evolution and biology say about a chicken? In other words, and now at the same time I'm applying my philosophy, logical deduction. I'm using logical deduction combined with evolutionary science and biology. And I'm saying, where did the chicken come from? Now, in terms of evolutionary science, from evolution, it came from something that resembled a chicken. Did you see the one step backwards now? Evolution.
Yes.
Chicken at the end. Before that, there was something that resembled a chicken. It's all word games. The whole problem with the chicken and egg is a word game. So I'm quite, how can I say, legitimate in using words and playing around with the words. So from the chicken came before the chicken came something that resembles a chicken. And before that, to go further back in evolutionary science and biology, we came from something that does not quite resemble a chicken. Then you go back a bit further evolutionary step and you come back to something that does not resemble a chicken at all. In other words, the unicellular form of life that gave rise to life came first. That is the living thing that came first. The unicellular form of life from the creation of life came first, and then that unicellular then produced something, and along the line, something which resembled a chicken, and then later on became a chicken. So the answer to the chicken and the egg is that yes, the chicken came first, and the chicken came from something that does not quite resemble a chicken, the unicellular form of life. So now you see how I've combined science, evolution, biology with logic, with symbolism, and to get an answer. And that, to me, is multidimensional thinking, which I apply in my books to a large extent.
Absolutely. And I really like that, because to me, that is the perfect blend of right and left brain thinking.
Yes.
It's marrying the two to come out at an answer that is true. And I think that logical that is just, logical and true.
It makes sense.
Because
it makes sense of science, yeah.
Exactly, yes. And I think that as a world, we could definitely start to use a bit more multidimensional thinking in how we approach our myriad of problems that plagues humanity. So that is absolutely brilliant.
But that is the problem
Dr. Henderson?
I was going to say, that is the problem we have today, is limited thinking, using one paradigm, one approach, and you're not thinking of all the ethics and all the issues and all the, that are involved. And this is the problem with decision making today.
Absolutely. I mean, I see this in debates that I often have with my friends, and they'll get upset with me because they say, "Oh, you're just sitting on the fence," and I say, "No, I'm trying to show you that no problem has a simple solution." Because they'll say, you take anything, whether it be politics or climate change or environmental disasters, poverty, all of these things. And they go, well, we just need to do X, Y, Z. And I go, okay, but then what about this? Let's see and then take them back to what is the root of the problem. So kind of like the chicken and the egg situation, what caused this to get to where we are now? And what are the varying options, and how would we then move forward in order to make things a little bit better? But yes, it is definitely, I think, something that everybody could benefit from, because we live, and you know this from your Rosicrucian studies, we live in a world that is dominated by polarity. Earth is in a polarity state constantly. There's always light and dark, always positive and negative. And it's only when we buy into one polarity over all others that problems then start to arise. because there is no such thing as, oh, this political party or this way of dealing with things or this corporation is absolutely right. It's just not. There's nuances to everything.
So many factors involved, and you have to learn to understand these factors. And unless you do, like I do, in superimposing, you're not going to get a complete answer.
No, you're just not. And that is the thing. So, Dr. Henderson, you are speaking again in February, which I can't believe January is almost done. 3 more days left? And we're done with the first month of the year.
Thank
but you're
goodness.
going to be speaking again. Yeah. It's not been a fun start to 2021, I can tell you that. And the funny thing is, just intuitively, since the year started, I've had this weird sense that the year actually starts on February 10th. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. It's just the strange date that I have in my head. And I keep going, yeah, I think February 10th is when things are going to start to, finally turn around a little bit, and 2020 will be done. And I mentioned this to a friend of mine in the States on last week. And he says, well, that's interesting, because did you know that there's a glitch right now on Apple? And if you ask Siri how many days left in 2020, it doesn't say that 2020 is ended. It tells you that there's another 30 days left, or however long, of 2020. Yeah. So it's an interesting little glitch that I didn't even know about, and yet here I'm going, yeah, I think February 10th is when the year actually is going to start kicking off. So, yeah, but as I say all that, to mention that you will be speaking at our conference in February. Now, our dates will be put up on our website and on all our social media as well over the coming days, so everybody please do keep a lookout for that. And Dr. Jimmy Henderson will be joining a few others as well, and we really do look forward to it and having you back again. Your talks are always so inspirational, so we really do thank you. One more time again, Dr. Henderson, if you'd like to please share with us how people can get in touch with you, where they can purchase your books, and what your social media handles are, and we'll make sure to put that in the comments as well.
Oh, thank you, Stephen. Let me comment briefly on the Wellness Lifestyle Festival. Yes, I will be doing a talk on the 29th. We actually very much on what we've spoken about now, this quantum computer subconscious mind. I'll be actually taking people through an exploration of the subconscious mind, theoretically and with a few practical exercises. So if they want to know more about how their subconscious works and how they can get through their subconscious to actually access the authentic self, the higher part of themselves, and even the soul, you need to pass through the subconscious mind to get through that stuff. And I will be talking on that. And then they can get hold of me. My books and articles are all linked to my website as well as my social media. So the best is just to get onto my website, where I've got all my social media connections there as well as my books. The website is www.discoveringyourself.co.za. www.discoveringyourself.co.za. Thanks once again, Stephen.
No, thank you, Dr. Henderson. We really do appreciate your time. And for those who are listening, the link to Dr. Henderson's Instagram will be in the comments of this video, as well as the address for his website. That's remind us again, discoveringyourself.co.za. Brilliant. Okay, great stuff. Dr. Henderson, looking forward to it. Always great to chat. And we look forward to it. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.